Coming up on Network Africa. Nigeria celebrates Democracy Day. President Bola Tinubu issues strong warning to bandits and kidnappers, as well as sponsors of terror, as the country celebrates today. Drone strike on a funeral procession at El Obeid Cemetery in Sudan kills at least 4 people, injures several others. And the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention calls on Western nations to provide appropriate funding for the fight against Ebola. Welcome everyone, I'm Joker Rogers here in Lagos. We begin from Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has issued a strong warning to bandits, kidnappers and sponsors of terror, ordering them to surrender or face the full force of the Nigerian state. President Tinubu gave the warning today during his Democracy Day broadcast. He said the windows of surrender will not be open forever and that no mercy will be shown to those who trade in the blood of Nigerians. The president also outlined his administration's efforts to strengthen the economy and announced national awards to honor Nigerians who played significant roles in the June 12 struggle. It's the third Democracy Day broadcast by President Bola Tinubu, a day set aside to commemorate the restoration of democracy in 1999. The president begins his 23-minute broadcast by congratulating Nigerians for achieving the feat of an unbroken democracy, recognizing the role of past leaders in ensuring the unity of Nigeria. He believes the forthcoming elections in Ekiti and Osun states provide yet another opportunity to deepen democracy in the country.
In the coming days, Ekiti and Osun states will hold elections. I urge INEC, security agencies, and all parties to ensure these polls are peaceful and credible. Democracy fails when citizens doubt the process.
The president also speaks about the challenges of insecurity, urging the armed forces and other security agencies to do more to protect the country.
Though this year's mood is dampened by the abduction of our children in Yoyo and Borno, we remain hopeful for their safe return. Democracy without security is not solid enough. That is why this administration has chosen both kinetic and non-kinetic strategies to restore peace, declared a security emergency, and approved the recruitment of 50,000 new police officers and thousands of military recruits. Our 2026 budget commits 5.41 trillion, our largest ever, to defense and security. To bandits, kidnappers, and sponsors of terror, surrender or face the full force of the Nigerian state. These windows of surrender will not remain open forever. No mercy will be shown to those who trade in blood of Nigerians.
He also explains the symbolism of June 12, calling it a defining chapter in Nigeria's history.
We remember Chief MKO Abiola, who won a pan-Nigerian mandate transcending ethnicity and religion. We remember Alhaja Kudirat Abiola. We also remember Chief Ganifa Emi, Chief Bola Ige, Chief Alfred Rwani, and Pa Abraham Adesoya, Chief Anthony Enahoro, Alhaji Balarabe Musa, Commodore Dan Suleiman, Beko Ransom Kuti, Franco Kori, Arthur Nwanko, Chima Obani, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, and the many other heroes and heroines of democracy whose sacrifices helped secure the freedom we enjoy today.
He goes on to speak about the economic reforms his government is undertaking.
3 years ago, our public finances were under severe strain. Investment was discouraged, and economic uncertainty threatened our future. We chose to act, embracing reforms to advance Nigerians' economic freedom. Since 2023, our reforms have restored stability and credibility to economic management.
The president then announces national awards for 32 Nigerians and a posthumous honor for Mr. Ben Obi. He says some of them suffered persecution, endured indignities, while others were exiled. Well, the president's message on security is echoed by the Minister of Defense, retired General Chris Musa, during his keynote address at the annual June 12th edition of the platform. While pushing for total collaboration and interagency synergy across the country, he says no single agency or service can defeat insecurity alone. He reiterates that the nation's security forces are not the enemies of the state, but victims of a broader challenge, and called for collective action from citizens.
If the people are ready and willing to make changes, changes will occur. If the people are not willing, nothing will happen. And I can tell you what's going on with the challenges we have in the country. Banditry, insurgency, terrorism. Why does it seem so difficult to deal with it? Perhaps we have the people that are also encouraging and supporting these things from happening. Because the terrorists, the bandits, survive around the people. There are several stories how people have aided them in giving them food, in giving them water, in giving them information. And these are the things that keep them going. And we call this the oxygen. Who are those funding them? Who are those giving them information? Who are those giving them the logistics that keeps them going? It is still the people. Conventional warfare in the past used to be state to state, country to country, so you know who your enemy is. The most dangerous aspects of battle or campaign is when the enemy is within. That individual that you are protecting is the number one enemy trying to take you out immediately he gets the chance. So it's important for us to always remember that the armed forces, the security agencies, no matter what they do, if the people are not ready to support, it makes it extremely very difficult.
Let's stay with Nigeria's Democracy Day celebration, and joining us now is African Affairs Analyst and National Secretary of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Achike Chude. Achike, thanks for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Right. Nigeria marks 27 years of democratic rule. While it should be commemorated, this is dampened by, of course, the state of insecurity as enunciated by the president in his speech this morning, and of course the harsh economic realities, even though the federal government has, brought out some positive news that the nation's GDP is growing, and we have more positive news from the reforms of the federal government. But what are some of the gains of democratic governance that we should not lose sight of because we have an unbroken record?
Yeah, well, I think that is part of the game, what you just described as an unbroken record, and the president talked about it, that this is the longest period in the history of this country from independence to date that we have the military almost stuck permanently to its barrack, though to their barrack, so though there were some elements that tried to misbehave sometime, some months back, and happily those people were caught and they are now being prosecuted. So I think if there is any major celebration to do, it will be the fact that it appears that the military has imbibed the lesson of allowing the civilians to decide the fate of this country. And of course, it is also the civilians have a responsibility not to give any form of excuse to the jackboots to do what they used to do in the past. So I think that that is one, major lesson. The other one is that, well, we are talking. We are talking through our institutions of governance. We are talking in the state houses of assembly. We are talking at the National Assembly, and we are talking at other levels of governance in this country. And the harassment of citizens is not as it used to be under military dictatorship. Though that is not to say that we still, once in a while, we do not have problems with the security agencies, especially journalists. But in the past few months, I think there has been a downturn in that. It's not as it used to be. So I think in a way lessons have been learned. And then again, they say experience knowledge comes with time. Experience comes with time. And so I hope that the politicians are learning. There are some things within that are happening within the system that tends to give you the impression that it's like they've learned nothing and they have forgotten nothing. So we continue to hope that as we move on, along the democratization process, that more and more lessons will be learned. Obviously, Nigerians are not happy because the essence of democracy promises a lot of dividends, and part of these dividends is that enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution, protection of lives and property, number one. Number two is the happiness, the well-being, the welfare of the people. And just like you said in your opener, it is very clear that Nigerians are not getting the best of the country right now. But let's continue to be optimistic, even though the clouds have not exactly opened up. I think it's just essentially because it's difficult for me to make a case for the president talks about the potential for growth, and for prosperity. He talks about his reform, and he loves the reforms that he has embarked upon. The reform, the single exchange rate, bringing the black market and the official market together, because people were making money in a very, very unjust way before now. Then the issue of the removal of subsidy, which has created monumental economic hardship for the people of this country, and then a few other reforms, the constant, the constant increase in or the search for the right pricing of electricity tariff. It could also be part of the reform, the tax process. But all of these things, these reforms, have not in any way improved on the lives of the Nigerian people. And so when you go out on the streets of Nigeria, long faces, frustration here and there. So I hope, that like the president said, that we are going to begin to see the fruits of these reforms. Right. It's not when people are dead that we begin to see these reforms. We want these reforms. The people are looking for the fruits of these reforms at this particular point in time.
Right, Achike, and you spoke of long faces for several days, and people had been on the streets protesting against insecurity in the country, and the outlash was owing to the one that happened in the southwest recently in Ogumosho, where students and teachers were kidnapped, some of them killed. The president let out a strong warning to bandits and kidnappers during his speech, saying that they should surrender or face, the consequences. 5.41 trillion naira was voted for defense and security in the budget. Is this nearly enough to deal with the situation, or do we see it the way the defense minister sees it when he spoke during the platform earlier today, that security is a collective responsibility and that the bandits and kidnappers thrive in the communities where they find themselves?
The president issued a very strong warning to the bandits, and but I said the warnings is the warning Is it the right thing to do at this time? It's good to warn them, actually, but do we have the capacity to carry out the consequences for them for their failure to heed with the president's warning? I do not think so, Nigeria, because that presupposes when the president gives them this warning, if they don't drop their arms, if they don't stop killing, if they don't stop, the horrible damage they are doing to our people and to our country, that they will deal with them decisively. That presupposes that they have not been dealing with them precisely, decisively all this while. And I think the government has been trying to do its best, but its best is simply not enough. The government has failed. There are no two ways about it. It's a responsibility to the Nigerian people to keep the people safe. And so obviously we need to begin to look for other ways, to keep the people safe. And then as for the 5 point something trillion, he says it is the highest in the history of this country. It's a good one. It means that security continues to be a priority for the citizens. But the question you ask, of course, there was this argument a while back that about not even half of the budget, of the money budgeted for security, for the security forces has been released. So, and same thing with other ministries and departments, also with some ministers coming out in an unprecedented manner to talk about non-release of funds. You cannot afford to do that. Especially in the area of security. That means that there is this dysfunctionality in the government, and it is the responsibility of the president to find out why funds that are meant for this, especially for security in the country, are not, being released. So it will be good to actually see very serious improvement in security. The president, I think, in his speech, talked about tens of thousands of terrorists surrendering. If we had that number surrender, what has happened to these people who have surrendered? Have they gone back again to the business of killing and terrorism? Or have they been, engaged in meaningful economic employment? These are some of the issues. So
Right.
It's good to hear some of this information from the president, but I'm not exactly sure that some of the information contained in that speech that's given to the president are exactly, correct based on what we're seeing on ground. But
Right.
I can tell you that our troops are doing well. Our
Yep.
troops are sacrificing their lives for our people to keep us safe. And then we owe an eternal debt to those of them who get killed in the course of in the line of duty.
Right. I must thank you again for your time at Chike today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And still ahead on the program. Mixed reactions in South Africa following 2-0 opening World Cup match defeat to Mexico. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Elsewhere, bilateral. Let's take a look at bilateral relations. The United Kingdom and Nigeria have launched a £115 million growth program aimed at unlocking private investment, accelerating economic transformation, and supporting Nigeria's transition to sustained reform-driven growth. UK Minister for Africa and International Development, Baroness Chapman, announced the initiative during a 2-day visit to the country, which covered engagements in Abuja and Kaduna as part of efforts to strengthen the UK-Nigeria strategic partnership. At least 4 people have been killed and several others injured after a drone strike hit a funeral procession at a cemetery in Sudan's El Obeid. 2 rights groups, the Sudan Doctors Network and emergency lawyers, have blamed the Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces for the attack. Emergency lawyers stated that it was part of a series of drone strikes that started earlier this week, which have left at least 23 people dead. In the meantime, the RSF is yet to comment on these accusations. El Obeid, which is currently controlled by the army, is a key battleground in Sudan's 3-year civil war. The conflict began after the leaders of the army and the RSF fell out over the future direction of the country. The fighting has created the world's worst humanitarian crisis, leaving more than 11 million people forced from their homes. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is calling on Western nations to step up and provide appropriate funding for the fight against Ebola, rather than simply imposing travel restrictions on African countries. Speaking in Addis Ababa, Africa CDC Director General Dr. Jean Kaseya reiterated that the best way to tackle the outbreak is to provide adequate funding and support. He also confirmed that African heads of state would meet next Tuesday to discuss the crisis.
Next Tuesday, 16th of June, we have a high-level presidential meeting. All African heads of state will meet virtually from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern African time. The meeting will be led by the President of Burundi, who is the AU chair. And one of the topics to be discussed will be, what can we do in this environment to give access to health workers and to allow population in need to get the support they deserve. We as Africa CDC, we cannot address this issue, but our leaders, they have to tell us what we can do. We are waiting for this meeting, and I'm so excited that finally this meeting will take place, and we hope to have good resolution from our leaders. Many African leaders, they want to pledge funds. Many other partners, they want also to confirm or to pledge, and we'll be taking note of all of these pledges, and we'll share with you how much we already secured. But my message is clear to Western countries. We are doing our best, but we want to keep this disease where it is. We need to contain that. The best way to contain that is not travel restriction. The best way to contain that is to provide appropriate funding and support for us to stop the spread of this outbreak.
Let's head to South Africa, where thousands of Malawian nationals in Durban are set to be repatriated, making Malawi the latest country to voluntarily repatriate its citizens from the country. According to South Africa's Department of Home Affairs, this is the biggest single-day repatriation it has ever recorded. However, despite threats to immigrants in the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa has continued to condemn attacks on fellow Africans. And just before we wrap up the program for the week, let's leave you on a sporting vibe following the opening World Cup match between South Africa and Mexico. Some Bafana fans have expressed optimism, noting that Argentina, the reigning with Bafana, and noting that the South African national team still has a lot of work to do. While Mexico dominated much of the encounter, some South African fans who spoke to our correspondent, Innocent Samosa, questioned the team's tactical approach and blamed coaching decisions for the disappointing result. And of course, we're officially in World Cup season. Here's football-related fun facts from the continent. Did you know that South Africa made history in 2010 by becoming the first and so far the only African nation to host the FIFA World Cup? The tournament brought millions of fans together and showcased Africa's ability to host one of the biggest sporting events on the planet. From the unforgettable sounds of the vuvuzelas, yes, I remember that one, to the spectacular opening ceremony, South Africa delivered a World Cup that captivated audiences around the globe. It was more than just football. It was a historic moment for an entire continent. I'm sure I didn't have to say, now you know, because everybody knows. But that's it on our show today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joker Rogers. Bye.